Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Extended. Chapter 4. A New Home. Harry, along with Hermione and the Weasley family, travelled to the Burrow a week after the funeral. As excited as he was to live in the only other place besides Hogwarts that had ever felt comfortable, the cottage had developed a sombre aura. The 9 Weasleys had become 8, and the loss of Fred still hung over them all. As soon as they arrived, George fled to his room and returned shortly after with his trunk packed. He hugged everyone in turn, then stared at the family clock for a few seconds before leaving through the back door. Harry heard the crack sound as George disapparated, then looked at the family clock. The hand bearing Fred's picture pointed at "Lost," and his likeness had dimmed. Mrs. Weasley let out a quiet sob, and Mr. Weasley placed his hand on her shoulder. "Why don't you all go and get settled," he said, "and we'll call you when lunch is ready." Harry, Ron, Hermione and Ginny quietly exited the room, not speaking until they were safely out of hearing on the stairway. "Fred and George were already living above their shop," Ron muttered, "but they would come back to stay now and again. I don't think George will come back as much now." He coughed. "So, if you wanted their room, Harry..." Harry stopped walking for a second. "Yeah, sounds good. Thanks," he added. He knew what Ron was thinking. Truthfully, he had been thinking the same. What would the sleeping arrangements be, now that he would be living at the Weasleys' house for the foreseeable future? Ron was obviously planning to ask Hermione to sleep in his room. Would Ginny ask Harry the same? What would Mr. and Mrs. Weasley say? As if on cue, Mr. Weasley's voice echoed up the stairs. "Harry, Ron, could you come down here for a moment?" Harry and Ron exchanged a glance. Hermione and Ginny stared at each other knowingly, then carried on towards the top of the house, leaving their boyfriends to return to the kitchen. When Harry and Ron entered, Mr. Weasley was sat alone at the kitchen table. "Take a seat, boys," he said, smiling gently. "Is Molly okay?" Harry asked, as he pulled a chair out. Mr. Weasley nodded. "It will take some getting used to." He glanced at the family clock again and shook his head. "She's gone for a stroll in the garden. In the meantime, I need to have a chat with you two." He cleared his throat. "I remember what it was like to be young and in love. Your mother and I were together when we were still at school. But even though we were well established as a couple by the time we left, there are still considerations for young men and women such as yourselves." Ron opened his mouth to respond, and Mr. Weasley held up his hand. "Let me finish, son." Ron looked down, and Mr. Weasley continued. "I know what you are going to say. You are both of age, and legally adults. I cannot control what you do with the girls out in the world. However, while you are under my roof, I must insist on separate bedrooms, and no nighttime forays into each other's beds. Do I make myself clear?" Harry and Ron nodded. "I need to hear it from you both," Mr. Weasley added. "Yes, Dad," Ron said. "Yes, Arthur," Harry said. "Good," Mr. Weasley replied. "Harry, it's up to you. You can either stay with Ron or take the twins' room." He cleared his throat. "Hermione is leaving for Australia in a couple of days, so she can stay with Ginny until then." He looked down his glasses at Harry. "I would also like to remind you, Harry, that Ginny does not come of age until August." "Yes, Arthur," Harry repeated. Mr. Weasley visibly relaxed. Harry could not say he felt the same. He could not remember a more uncomfortable conversation. "Now then," Mr. Weasley continued. "Off with you. Take the day to relax. Tomorrow, you'll both need to start practicing for your aura assessment. I'm back in the office in the morning, so you are to help Molly with whatever she needs." The boys nodded again and stood up, leaving the kitchen quietly. As Harry glanced back, he saw Mr. Weasley stand up and face the family clock. Ron and Harry did not speak again as they climbed the stairs to the top of the burrow. Harry saw the disappointment in Ron's face and knew what he was thinking. Hermione would certainly obey Mr. Weasley's rules. Harry was not so sure Ginny would. She had a rebellious streak in her, much like Harry did, but he wanted to respect the commands of his host. The Weasley parents were letting him stay with them, for free, as they had done numerous times. They had never asked anything from him in return. Harry owed them the courtesy of keeping his distance from their daughter while he lived with them. "See you in a bit, then," Ron said sullenly. Harry did not want his best friend moping in his room after all that had happened, and a thought struck him. "Want to play Quidditch?" he asked. Ron's expression brightened immediately. "Definitely. I'll go get my broom." He sped off towards his room, leaving Harry standing outside his own. He smiled. He reminded himself for the 100th time how grateful he was that Ron had made it through. Harry entered the twins' room, his mind reeling. He opened the door to find a tidy, but sadly empty, space. A bed sat on either side of the room, and shelves lined the walls. Harry guessed they must, until this morning, have held many of the twins' possessions. George had taken everything. Harry opened the windows wide and pointed his wand at his school trunk down on the lawn. It rose into the air and floated gently into the bedroom, landing with a soft thump on the floor. He opened the trunk and began rummaging to find his broomstick. "So," said a voice behind him. Harry turned around, broomstick in hand, and found Ginny staring at him with a sly expression. "Hey," Harry said. "Ron and me are going to play Quidditch. Do you and Hermione want to—" "What did my dad want?" Ginny interrupted. Harry paused. He told me we have to sleep in separate rooms, and I'm not allowed to sneak into your bed at night." Ginny grinned at him and stepped closer. "He also reminded me," Harry added, "that you aren't 17 for a few months." "So what?" Ginny said, throwing her arms around him. "Ginny," Harry said, "it's his house. He made a rule and I'm going to respect it. We're going to respect it. There will be plenty of time for, all of that." He felt his face burn and saw a slight tinge of red in Ginny's cheeks. "You sure I can't change your mind?" she asked, as she ran a hand through his hair. She pulled his face down to hers and kissed him. Harry was overcome by the feeling he always had when they kissed, that he was flying. He shook his head and pulled away. "Not fair," Harry said. "Behave." "Humph," Ginny said, frowning. She turned away, muttering, "I'll get my broom," before leaving. Harry, Ron and Ginny spent the next 2 hours flying around the paddock behind the burrow, throwing apples for each other to catch. Hermione, insisting that she did not get along with brooms, sat under a tree reading, occasionally glancing up at Ron whenever he laughed. When they were becoming too tired and hungry to continue flying, the three of them agreed to call it a day. "What are you reading?" Ron asked, as he landed next to Hermione. "It's a book about memory charms," she replied. "I'm trying to gather as much knowledge as I can about how to reverse them, and how to avoid any long-term damage. Remember what Lockhart did to himself?" "Yeah," Harry said. "But you didn't make your spell that powerful on your parents, did you?" "No," Hermione said, "but I also implanted new memories. It was tricky, one of the hardest spells I'd ever done. I tried to leave enough of an imprint of me that I could bring their old memories back, but—" "You'll figure it out," Ron said. "You always do. I could still—" "No, Ron," Hermione interrupted. "We discussed this." "What's he talking about?" Ginny asked. "He wants to come with me," Hermione said, "and I reminded him that I'll have 2 obliviators from the Ministry to help and protect me. More importantly, he has his aura assessment to study for. She said, looking from Ron to Harry, if you don't practice magic, your abilities don't just hang around forever. You need to work on them. Harry turned red. Now he thought about it, he could count on one hand how many spells he had used in the last week. Hermione's right, Harry said. We have to get to work. Kingsley won't pass us just because of what we did. He's already doing us a favour. Fine, Ron said. Just make sure you write, he added to Hermione. Of course, she said, holding out her hand. Ron took it, and Harry knew that was his and Ginny's signal to give them some space. He grasped Ginny's hand, and they slowly made their way back to the house, leaving Ron and Hermione alone. Mrs. Weasley had prepared a huge lunch, filling the entire kitchen table with bowls laden with food. Harry gave her a smile when he walked in, which she returned. Her eyes were puffy, but she seemed to have composed herself. Who's hungry? She asked chirpily. Me, Ginny cried, taking her usual seat around the table. Harry sat next to her, squirming slightly when she placed her hand on his leg under the table. Ron and Hermione entered the kitchen a few minutes later, both looking flustered. Mrs. Weasley tutted but avoided looking at them as they sat down and piled food onto their plates. As they were all clearing the table, an owl arrived with mail. As the large barn owl held out its leg, Harry could see that the letter was sealed with the Ministry of Magic logo. Mrs. Weasley ripped open the envelope and began reading. Ron, Harry, it's for you, she said. From the Minister. Ron took the letter and Harry read over his shoulder. Dear Ronald and Harry, your aura assessment will take place at 10 o'clock on the 20th of May. I apologise for giving you so little time to prepare, but under the circumstances, we need all hands on deck as soon as possible. Assuming that you both pass, of which I have no doubt, your training will begin on the 1st of June. Conventionally, auras train for 3 years before undergoing their final tests, but the Aura Department has created a fast-track program lasting for 3 months so that capable candidates can assist with the ongoing hunt for the escaped Death Eaters, and learn, as it were, on the job. I have given my consent for this temporary measure, due to the fact that if we do not find Voldemort's last supporters soon, they may disappear forever, or worse, rally support for their lost cause and grow strong once again. While I appreciate that yourself and Ron already have experience in fighting the above mentioned, we still want to ensure that you are prepared for every eventuality, even within our limited time frame. The Fast Track program will therefore contain an overview of everything an Aura trainee would normally cover, and your mentors will flag any weak areas you may display, to be corrected at a later date. If you could please ensure you present yourselves to the Aura office at 10 o'clock on the 20th of May, where you will be met by Ewan Ward, who will be completing both of your assessments. Please find included a full summary of what to expect. I look forward to working with you both. Yours sincerely, Kingsley Shacklebolt, Acting Minister for Magic. As he read the letter, Harry felt something he had not felt for a while, and for a moment he could not place where he had felt it before. Then it hit him. Exam nerves. The same tightness of stomach that had always accompanied his exams at Hogwarts now settled on him again. He did his best to hide his discomfort as he smiled and said, "Better get cracking then." Ron smiled back meekly. Hermione looked from one to the other. "You know you weren't expecting an easy ride," she said. "I know," Ron replied, his jubilant aura vanishing. "Just thought we'd have longer to prepare." Mrs. Weasley took the letter from Ron and skimmed through it. "Well, it's as the Minister says, the quicker they can recruit help, the better. Everyone is helping to chase down the escaped Death Eaters, including Arthur." Her voice broke slightly as she said her husband's name. Harry knew what she was thinking. She had only recently lost a son, and now her husband was putting himself in harm's way, again. "We'll be prepared, Molly," Harry said. "Defense against the dark arts was always our best subject in school," he added with a grin. "Might have been your best subject," Ron said. "I was mediocre at best." Give yourself some credit, Hermione said. You came a long way this last year. I'm sure you and Harry will have no problem passing, as long as you prepare. She said the last part in her teacher tone. And look, Mrs. Weasley said, as she pulled the separate sheaf of parchment from the envelope and scanned the contents. You don't have to prepare spells or anything. These are only aptitude tests. They're testing for your suitability rather than your powers. Just be yourselves and you'll be fine. Harry and Ron spent the rest of the day rereading Kingsley's assessment guidance and attempting to ready themselves. They were not sure how to practice remaining comfortable under pressure, so they took it in turns performing minor hexes on each other and seeing how long they could bear the annoyance while staying composed. Harry could tell Ron was distracted, though. Hermione would be leaving for Australia in the morning, and Harry knew his friend was less frustrated by their impending aura assessments than by Hermione going away. It's only for a few months, at most, Harry muttered, when he caught Ron again glancing towards Ginny's window, which Hermione occasionally walked past as she packed. I just don't like saying goodbye, Ron said. The last time, I didn't know whether I'd see her again. Harry knew what he was referring to. While on their search for Voldemort's Horcruxes, Ron had temporarily abandoned them. Harry knew he still carried guilt from leaving. He placed a hand on Ron's shoulder. It won't be like that this time, he said. She'll be safe with the Obliviators. And you know how good Hermione is. She'll probably be back in a couple of weeks. Ron replied.